Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So obviously, a little bit of disclaimer. I am a Temis customer. Gannett is a current Temis customer, but I have done 3 other installations with 3 of their major competitors. So I'm very familiar with the joys and woes of taxonomy development and auto-tagging. So I'm going to talk about what we've done at Gannett, but some of my observations at the end are based on my aggregate experience. So as Rena mentioned, I think the most famous part of Gannett is USA Today, but it's a company that's been around since 1906, 82 daily newspapers and 23 TV stations. We cover quite a bit of the U.S., markets like Indianapolis and St. Louis and Tampa and Phoenix, Rochester, so many major markets. We don't know exactly how much content we produce every day, which I think is true of a lot of people, but upwards of 10,000 items, but that is really probably just on the print side. I don't really know how much video news stuff we do yet because I haven't dug into the video side. Because of so many different content management systems, it's hard to say, but we do a lot, and that could not be tagged manually. It's not possible. So I enjoy support of very senior management at Gannett, and we have a bunch of people who are well familiar with taxonomy, at least, if not some of the intricacies of auto-tagging, but the importance of tagging content to expose it to our audience, to get it out there in different products, in different forms, so that people click on it, and of course that's our revenue, right? So this is a quote from one of the vice presidents of product at Gannett Digital, but we are working towards this standardized tagging of all content across a very large company with a lot of different taxonomies and a lot of different ways of doing things. So why did we want to do this? What do we expect to get out of taxonomy and tagging? Well, the biggest thing is uniformity. Again, if I have 105 properties, I have 105 taxonomies. If it's climate change in one city, maybe it's environmental policy in another. If it's boys high school basketball in one market, it might just be boys basketball in another. That makes searching for the content difficult. It makes sharing it difficult. And also free-form tagging, if I give any content item to 10 different people, they're going to give it 10 different tags. You've looked at photo sites on the web that have free-form tagging. Somebody just puts purple in because they feel like it, right? And that's fine, and I'm a huge proponent of folksonomies and that tagging, but there have to be different sets of tags. We have to have one uniform base set of tags that we can do certain products off of, and then we will have other tags that perform other functions. So just being able to do an analysis and a deep dive on what we've got in there is a big deal. We may find that once we run 10 years of content through, there are huge areas that we haven't covered. Maybe some science things that actually would get some good traction in the market that we haven't covered. Or perhaps we have a lot of content on blues music in some of our southern properties, and nobody in the company knows about that. We haven't really reproductized it. It was written once, it went out, it was in a daily paper, it was on the web for a few hours, and then it just sort of disappeared. So we want to be able to continue the life of content as easily as possible. And of course, just in general, it's better search. But the biggest piece of this is that productization, creating topic pages, creating related content modules, powering single subject apps like Emmy Awards or any variety of things that we want. If we don't have uniform tags across all of the content, it's going to take an enormous amount of time and human energy to try to manually curate that or to try to get it tagged. This stuff has to be happening. It's 24/7. It might have a short shelf life, but so it has to happen immediately all the time. And then the monetization, right? That's the end goal. How do we drive our KPIs, our key performance indicators? Time on site and engagement. In the media world, page views have been the gold standard for a long time. They're not a particularly relevant measurement. They're still out there. But we want to be able to go to advertisers to say, this is how much time people have been spending on with our content. This subject gets this much traffic. perhaps you'd like to advertise there, right? It gives them that ability to be much more granular and targeted in where their ads appear. In the old days, you really, and even still today, you really only have run of sight. You can't, other than targeting to a news section or a sports section, I can't target down to specific things like climate change or like a particular basketball player. That just hasn't been possible in any media organization. So those are the kinds of products that we can drive. So there are two big pieces to this project. One of them is the taxonomy and the auto tagging engine, and then the other part is how is that actually going to be integrated into the workflows? How are the 20 different CMS systems going to ingest that? How are they going to be consumers of what we're outputting, those tags in the taxonomy? That piece of it is actually bigger and a more of a headache on the project side than doing the taxonomy and getting the auto categorization software up and running and tuned and humming along. So I've separated these out into two things. Just in terms of the tagging development, when you're covering things from fish fries to the war in Syria, and each one of those two things could get equal play and equal traffic in any given market. It's not an issue, but you just have to be thinking about the depth and the breadth that you have to address. Breaking news. The breaking news issue is really sort of more of a volume thing because there's breaking news in all markets, 105 markets every day. So it's a small department. How do you handle making sure that people who are new in the news or topics that are new in the news are being recognized by the tagging engine and are becoming a part of that controlled vocabulary. For auto tagging, the content structure and length is important. A very short piece or a UGC, a user-generated content like a tweet or a comment that is grammatically questionable, can be a challenge for the tagging engine. So you have to have different strategies for depending on what kind of content you have. We have a lot of sports content where it says Panthers trounced Cougars 14-2 blowout. Well, we know a human knows what that is because it's the sports section, or you see the picture, you just know what that is. It's the high school football game. But machines, from Google to any categorization engine, aren't going to know that just from that text. So what are the clues that you're going to give the tagging engine? What are just what does your content look like? What's your voice? How do you typically write? Do you have a long expose? Do you have a short blog post? Those are all the things that you have to be thinking about. And we have a lot of ambiguity issues. And the way that you productize this is that each of these tags has an ID number behind it. And that is an entity. It's not just a label that says Robert Smith. If I've got 10 Robert Smiths across all of my content, I've got 10 Robert Smiths in the taxonomy, each with a different ID number. So if I've got the topic page for the mayor and a topic page for the bank robber, we don't want that content to mix, right? Or the mayor doesn't, certainly. So the bank robber doesn't care, but the mayor definitely doesn't want that other content on his topic page. So making sure that the disambiguation of the Robert Smiths, but also the locations, and if you're talking about a company versus a product, those are all things that you want to be worrying about, thinking about. You probably have a lot of acronyms in your content. If you have 10 LSI, let's say that that's your acronym. Well, how are you going to handle that? How is the tagging engine going to understand it? How are humans going to understand it? You have to then surface what does the LSI stand for, and just disambiguation issues just pop up kind of in a nasty way throughout. So it's nice to think about that beforehand. We've been talking. I've been talking a lot the last few days, obviously, about semantic technology at the Semantic Technologies Conference, and they're different things. We're going to talk about it a little bit more later, but in general, it's not a new technology, but it's less in the mainstream than a SQL database or things that have been around for 50 years. And so when you start talking to certainly C-level executives, when you start talking to just everyday technology folks, they don't immediately see perhaps the value of what semantic markup can do. I would encourage you to, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say semantic web, read up about it, because it's a very powerful way of making your content visible and being able to recombine it. And of course, everyone's favorite, who's gonna do the development work, who's gonna do these integrations. Even though I enjoy the support of the CEO, so do a lot of other people, and we're all in the same queue. And there's a lot of other priorities too. So it's not insignificant that the work that has to be done to do that integration. Okay, so what did we decide? What were we going to do, and what happens in the process? We know we need to auto tag. We know we can't manually tag 10,000 content items a day. We know, okay, we have to have some software for that. There are different flavors of software, right? Themis is one. There are, 10 others, who really play in the space at this level. Maybe not 10, but they have different amounts of work that has to go into getting results, right? Guillaume will like to say, "Oh yes, turnkey." And there are certain things that can happen right away, but there's also a lot of work that is involved. And one of the mandates that Gannett set was to not have a lot of reliance on manually curated rules. Some of the systems require rather a lot of personnel to be maintaining those rules, and at some point that starts to defeat the purpose of doing some auto tagging, and because obviously in media, as in many industries, you don't get to add headcount. What were the things that were going to get us the most results? Subjects, geographies, names of organizations, names of companies, names of people and events, and hopefully eventually products, if I can get a good enough data source for products. I don't have that yet. But so we maintain these as separate vocabularies, and at the end, when the content has been reviewed and Themis does its thing and it decides, okay, this content is about this subject, and it mentions these geographies, it mentions these people, those are all output as tags with those ID numbers that we can do things with. So again, Themis is our auto-tagging engine. We also use our taxonomy and ontology management system is from Mondeca, also another French company, Intelligent Topic Manager. And we did not do our own taxonomy to begin with. We did license an existing news taxonomy. I have a lot of opinions about taxonomy, obviously, so which we could talk about offline. I think you are best to start with one that focuses on your content. That's what text analytics are for, to pull out those noun phrases and to do that analysis to say, this is what I've been talking about in my content. So again, the return on investment is going to be driving engagement, getting content that's of interest, and if you think, well, somebody has to have seen a story that happens to come up on a web page at any given time, and that content is changing constantly. So what are the kinds of ways that we can make sure we are putting it in different places, resurfacing it, repackaging it, maybe feeding it to a third party, all of those things that are going to pay, that's an incremental payback on that content that used to be, the newspaper was read and done, boom, the next day. Maybe somebody did some research in archives and stuff, but content can have a much longer life on the web if people can find it. And the amount of time saved internally, searching for research for a new story you're writing. You just moved to Phoenix and you have to write a story about hot air ballooning. You don't know that 2 years ago there was a terrible accident. You want to make sure you write that. You want to be able to search easily in your archives and have that kind of stuff come up. And again, for the packaging, knowing that, and the search, knowing that you don't have to call. I do actually right now have a video of people who call 23 TV stations to get some content because nobody tags it the same way, or they don't tag it at all. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. And this project to date has been about a year and a half. I would say, I think it depends, certainly. From start to finish, there's a lot of stuff that you can have up and running, 6 to 8 months, and certainly a year, depending on the size, of what you want to do, and always probably starting with one little piece, not the big picture. So this is just briefly what those vocabularies that I was discussing, and the high-level placeholders, so that humans can easily navigate through. Underneath this, right now, we have 96,000 people, and that doesn't include any of my local markets. That's just national and international that we license from AP. And those high-level subjects, so underneath that, we go down to not more than 5 levels. Most of it's still fairly high level. Always room for growth there. So that's just a snapshot. So here's one of the things that we're currently powering on USA Today. This is a topic page, and it's fed automatically. Anytime content gets tagged with, anytime the Themis engine recognizes that Danica Patrick is the subject of an article, and it gives that tag, it goes through the workflow. And I should say that what happens is you create the content in the content management system, and you hit save. It goes and it calls the tagging engine. It sends the content to the tagging engine, runs its secret sauce and algorithms and everything, and it says, okay, these are the 6 tags we're going to assign, and it comes back. Those are assigned, again, as appended as XML, and then they can go through the process, however, wherever we're going to feed that to. If we're going to feed it to a mobile feed, or if it's just going to be a topic page, if we're going to display it as labels, as we do here. These are blog posts. If you see the tags on the left-hand side, if you click on those, that will take you to a topic page. Those are all product decisions, right? You can decide how you want to do that. It's better to actually have them as inline links. This is what we did at Hearst. So for SEO reasons, I think as Guillaume mentioned SEO, if you don't know that one too, it's possibly valuable to read about if you're trying to get your content into the Googles and Yahoos of the world. But an inline link, you click on that, it would take you to a topic page. This is another Hearst example. So this is search results, and it allows you to drill down in a manner similar to what Jerry's stuff does, but here we're giving a count of content that has the number of content items that have that tag, and it's the content has to mention then both your search term and those other terms. Again, this is all however you want to design it. It's just an example of a product. So then just a little bit about taxonomy versus ontology. Gross oversimplification, but a taxonomy tended to be, it's hierarchical, but it tends to be just the label. Now behind that you might have some synonyms and things, but the power of ontology and the power of semantic markup and the RDF store and all the things that we've been discussing is that you're managing this complex web of relationships. So another example is if the taxonomy is just the athlete's name, in the ontology, what I'm managing is all of the information about them, the team they play for, the position they play, their uniform number, who they're married to, their kids' names, the charities that they support, because on the other end, what I can do is say, okay, so here's some stories about this athlete. Maybe what I should surface on that page are some stories about the charity that he supports and other athletes who also support that charity. And I'm managing all that stuff in the background in this ontology management system. And there are some lightweight business rules that just say, if you display this, then also display this. And that you can see that the possibilities for these content packages become sort of exponential. You want this 360 degrees about somebody. And in the news world, related content is a very different thing. I don't necessarily want 10 stories with the exact same keyword tag. I want, if it's a story about Rihanna being beaten up by Chris Brown. I want stuff about domestic violence. I want stuff about other celebrities. I don't want 10 stories about that particular event. So it's a little bit different. And it's also, what your click-through rates are going to come from recommended content. It might not have anything to do with the story you're reading, or it might peripherally have something to do with the story you're reading. But it's just offering stuff that you think people want to click on. I use the example of diabetes stories. We know that our readers, when they search for content about diabetes, they may also look for high blood pressure stories. Now, those aren't necessarily really related, but we're managing that relationship in the back end, and we're going to get double the click-through rates, or double the time on site and engagement. This is just an example of what a person record looks like in the taxonomy management system. We could have any number of fields in here. We can add all the movies that Johnny Depp has been in. Again, his charities, whatever we want. This is the model of a person model. He could have multiple roles. Maybe he's an actor, and maybe he's also a politician. All of those things that used to have to be managed with polyhierarchy and taxonomy are now managed in an ontology. Again, the point being we can recombine all of this based on the one tag, on the Johnny Depp tag. Think about the flow of other things that we could, other combinations of content that we could output from this. This is just a screenshot from Themis when you are doing some content analysis to see what are the kinds of noun phrases and what are the people that are showing up in any of your content items. And another view of it, kind of nice to be able to see the graph. This is just 30 documents from a Rochester set, and so Rochester is the first term there. It's mentioned 9 times, and then like Finger Lake, and I can't read these either. But that was just a page 1 of a pretty significant analysis, and we could output that into Excel, and so I can start manipulating it and saying, okay, these are the kinds of subjects that Rochester carries or talks about that are different from what USA Today talked about, that are different from what Phoenix talks about, and then I can start adding those to the controlled terms. I'm not going to cover this stuff. It's a little bit, it's not really pertinent. So here's some observations. And I'm actually going to kind of go out of order from what these are. My favorite, and I think other people have commented on too, is no task forces, committees, or other large groups of people deciding about these taxonomies. If you can at all sort of start with, and I'm not saying don't get input, but it's going to take you a really long time if it's a collective effort. I find if I can do the text analytics first and I can build a framework, I can say, look, here's what I think. So let's, here's a bunch of terms. We can fill that out. But if you started with something, you're going to get to the end product a lot faster. And as I mentioned, there are the 2 pieces. There's the taxonomy and the auto tagging, but then there's that productization and implementation with CMSs and stuff. I would start with that. We were joking the other day about people say, oh, well, I'm going to do the taxonomy, and then next year, we're going to do this other part of it. Start with the other part first. It can direct some of the taxonomy tags that you use, because if you, like in the news business, we have some very formal terms in our taxonomy. What we really need are some SEO-friendly terms, exactly what people are going to be searching on. So if we had known exactly what products we were going to be fueling, and all of that had been built out with the workflows, it would have influenced some of the term development. Again, I've mentioned the importance, I think, of semantic markup, the schema.org. There are other standards for different verticals, different industries. If your goal is to get your content more widely seen in the search engines, reach a wider audience, this is the most important thing that you can do. And you may have started hearing the term content marketing if you're in the advertising space or the content space. Get your content out to different distribution channels. If you there are the Outbrain, Taboola, and Zemanta are some lightweight tagging services, essentially, that but they're content networks, and so you get a content from any 400 different sources. It's just a great way to get your message out there. And again, my last line, RDF is the new plastics. Again, semantic web. Check it out. And if I didn't provide links, but if you Google the BBC, and actually BBC Olympics 2012, what they have done with semantic markup and linked data is it's just a gold standard. And I just heard them speak earlier this morning, and they're like my heroes. I'm hoping that we're going to get to that point at Gannett. But also, if you think about content in an e-commerce way, that you're selling shoes, you're just selling a different version of it. Best Buy has done some amazing work with how they present the metadata about each of their items. This TV set, it's not just a TV set with a brand name. There's just a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background to make that more visible to Google, Bing, and Yahoo, so that when people search, they're the first results. And there's a semantic web blog that is not too technical. Sometimes it is, but it's just got a lot of really great ideas about what's going on in this space. So thank you.
Thank you very much.